Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming out and welcome to GamesBeat Summit. My name is Stephen Machuga. I am the founder and CEO of StackUp.org, military charity within the game space. Some of you might have heard of us before, and I'm here to do a little presentation on building out charity in the game space and what that looks like. I've got a couple years of doing this under my belt, and I've learned a couple things along the way, and I'm here to share them with you today. So, happy Friday, or as some people might say, happy Final Fantasy VII Remake Day out there. So let's get started here. A little bit about myself, where I'm coming from. Again, was in the military for 8 years, U.S. Army, commissioned through Purdue University from 94 to 98. Came out as a shiny second lieutenant in the United States Infantry. And then at the 4-year mark, transitioned over to military intelligence. I was at the 82nd Airborne, then transitioned over to 2nd Infantry Division up in Fort Lewis, Washington, for my tour overseas. Did 2 tours, one in Kosovo as the liaison to the Russian military in Kosovo, and then my second tour was combat patrols in Iraq for a year, which was, let me tell you, that was a blast. So, um, and so overall, I got out in 2006. So 8 years total. That's where I'm coming from. These are some good pictures of me from combat camera while we were over there. But the big picture that tells you everything you need to know about me is right here. This is right before we were getting ready to deploy, November of 2003. And as you can see here in the, absolutely essential article of gear is a Game Boy Advanced and, of course, Final Fantasy Tactics in my pocket, ready to go at a moment's notice. So that kind of tells you everything you need to know about who I am as a person, as a gamer, and as somebody running a gaming charity. So there you go. All right. So where am I coming from? What does this guy know about charity? All right. So I've been doing this for a couple years now, and I literally did not expect to be doing charity for most of my adult life. But funny how life works out. I started way back in the day. I left the service in 2006, and then stumbled backwards into a writing gig over at a small place called Sarcastic Gamer, which was the place where I met Jeremy Doc Adams, who would go on to be the founder of a little group called Extra Life. And I was the editor in chief over there for a while, and ended up getting the seed planted in my head for charity. I did not have I did not have an attachment to sick children like Doc did. I didn't have that same drive, but I appreciated what they were trying to do over there, and I loved it. Opened up something in me that I didn't know I had. So started looking around, started trying to figure out how I could do something that meant more to me in my life, and it was about that time in 2010 when my gunner in Iraq redeployed to Afghanistan, and he ended up asking. He knew I had some connections to the games industry, and asked me if there was anything he could. Hey, could you send us an Xbox? So that was the how things started. That's how my original first charity, a little group called Operation Supply Drop, started back in November of 2010, and that was sending Xboxes and PlayStations to guys and gals overseas. Due to some, I don't want to say mismanagement, but trusting the wrong people, I lost control of that organization in 2015, and then went on to start my current organization, Stack Up, which is focused more about the mental health awareness and suicide prevention for veterans. So what is Stack Up? All right, so Stack Up, military charity in the game space. We're really the only, we're a unique brand. We're really the only people in our space doing what we're doing. We have 4 main pillar platforms. We have our supply crate program, where we send games and gear to units deployed to combat zones, folks recovering in military hospitals, and folks struggling back home. You kind of forget that if you are a single dad or mom and you can't pay the bills, or you're in the middle of a COVID, global pandemic, one of the first things to go to the pawn shop is the Xbox. So a lot of, we want to make sure we're helping individuals stay gaming and stay in a good, positive mindset. And gaming helps with that. It's a big piece of, what it is we do is keeping. One of the major triggers for veteran suicide is a lack of connectedness. A lot of veterans are in such a hurry to get out of the service that they go sprinting out, and then they forget everything that they left behind, all the family, all the connections, and they're out on their own. And then they find that the civilian sector doesn't really care about them the way that the military did. So it's a tough transition for a lot of guys, and having the ability to stay connected to your, your infantry platoon in Hawaii, or, a buddy who got out, in DC or something like that, is really important. So that's what we strive to do with those. Our Air Assault program is where we fly disabled and deserving veterans to various gaming events, esports venues, championships like E3, Comic Con, things like that. Obviously, hit a little hard right now with the coronavirus nonsense happening, but we're still I mean, that just means the second half of the year we're going to hit it even harder when we all come out of this thing. Our Stacks program, which we got about 30 individual teams nationwide that get out and do good work in their communities as far as supporting local volunteer efforts, whether it's painting a vet center, or just getting together and getting a slice of pizza together, just making sure veterans are getting out from behind their machines and gaming and doing something positive together. It's about connecting veterans. And then lastly, our and I feel some of our most impactful work is our Overwatch program, the Stack Up Overwatch program, or STOP, which is our 24/7 suicide prevention online through Discord, peer-to-peer counseling for veterans who are in need of someone to talk to, somebody to game with, and just making sure we're getting these guys and gals in a position where they come away with it feeling like they have a connection online with somebody that they can talk with, that they can trust. A lot of veterans have a tendency to button up. They don't want to go out and interact with. They don't want to go to the VA. They don't trust the VA. They don't have people. It's 3 a.m. They're hopped up on a bunch of opioids that the VA has given them, and they can't sleep, and they need something. They can't talk to anybody. It's easy to get into a game or talk to somebody who speaks their language through gaming, and that's where that comes in. So that's where we're coming from. The goal, and trust me, this was never the plan when I started this back in 2010. When I started doing this, it was just about, it was a cute little thing we were doing. We were sending Xboxes to folks overseas, and that was adorable. And over a decade, it has morphed into, hey, maybe we can take a stab at this whole 22 a day number. And the big overwhelming vision is actually being able to make an impact in our world against this epidemic that is just not going away. We've heard 22 a day for years now, and nothing is happening, nothing is changing. And in a case now where there's this invisible threat that is just crushing everybody, it's even more important that we're able to get folks gaming and get folks interacting with one another through gaming. And that's kind of where we come in. So as you can see here, our mission: eliminate extreme. Well, I don't want to read off the slide. We're not going to be that guy. So that's where we're coming from as an organization. And this is a great, really, this sums it up. Elliot Alcantara, one of the heroes of the Battle of Restrepo in Afghanistan. He was one of our recipients. We flew him out to PAX West a couple years ago. Definitely utilized gaming to kind of get through those dark periods of time in his life where he couldn't sleep. He just needed to get away from reality for a while. Great dude. Awesome. We were able to link up with him. Restrepo was considered one of the hardest deployments in Afghanistan, like just combat after combat every single day, movement to contact. It was a real tough spot there in Afghanistan. So we were lucky to have him, and lucky to be able to provide support to him. So that's where we're coming from. That's what Stack Up is. That's who I am. So what over these last 10 years have I learned? Let's go ahead and take a look real quick. This is kind of a table of contents for what we're going to talk about in the next 10, 15 minutes or so. This is just kind of where some of the things that I've learned, and I'm going to pop off the slide presentation here and go over some of my notes. So, but I didn't want to just turn this into me reading off the slides. So this is where we're coming from. So let's get to it. 10 years of charity have changed me. Definitely. That is a weird, it seems like something that you would just go, yeah, of course it has. I was not always who I am now. And if you could talk to my ex-wife, I'm sure she would tell you a lot less of an ass that I used to be, thanks to just having my essence rewired in as far as helping other people. And I was just not born that way. The military specifically trains you that, like, yes, help the individual, help your brother to your left or your right, but you know, carry on with the mission. Though I be the lone survivor, and it's a very solo mentality, and I don't need anybody else, and I can do it myself. And if you can't do it, then that's on you. But I got this. And they kind of beat that in you. And then when I got out of the military, I found that working, part of the reason why I started the charity in the first place was how it made me feel, and what um, the just that good vibe that I ended up getting for doing this work and being able to help out. And 10 years of that later, it really gets into you. Like, and it sounds silly to talk about, but like, I'm an alliance player in World of Warcraft, where everybody loves playing Horde, and I sail around in Sea of Thieves, and I try helping people there. And it's like, that's not who I was back in the day when I was a hard charging infantryman, in the locker, the guy's locker room, and cool and all that stuff. And that was not who I was. But 10 years of this later, I definitely feel like a different person, and I'm much more sympathetic uh, for other people's plights. You get so many requests over everybody asking for help. Everybody needs support. Everybody needs something. And you read some of these stories, and some of them are, a little bit of fluff, but others, it's really impactful stuff. And it's amazing when you can actually reach out and you get thank you letters back from individuals who are like telling you just what this means to them and their unit and their family, and what it does to them. And it doesn't go a week or two where we don't get some thank you letter or note, where it's always a surprise. It's always, every time we get one, it's a warm and fuzzy. So that's where we're coming from there. I found out how difficult it is to raise money for adults. There are a lot of charities out there that focus on um, sick children, and sick children. I like to say, or pets, or things like that. Blameless victims, I like saying. And it's like, it's individuals who have not gotten a fair shake in life. It's like a 4-year-old with leukemia. It's like, that is not fair. You should be raising money for them, because they need all the help they can get so they can live a life that they deserve on this planet. The folks that I work for, and the folks that other organizations like our allies over at One Up on Cancer, where it's adults, we get pushback that a lot of organizations don't. You get the whole, first off, you get the American military complex nonsense, where it's like, oh, baby killers, and they get what they deserve. They signed up for this. We don't want to help them. Uh, and a lot of, like, much like One Up on Cancer, they raise money for adults with cancer, and they struggle dealing with adults, because it's one of those. And I use them as a point of reference, where like, this should be an obvious thing to raise money for, and yet they just, it's extremely difficult, because okay, well, maybe they smoke 3 packs a day. This is on them. This is their fault. And so that makes it very difficult at times, very difficult to raise money for. We at Stack Up, it kind of put us in a different mentality when we were raising money. um, it took a long time for me. Next bullet is mom and pop versus Walmart, and how to feel good about that. It took a long time when you look at organizations like St. Jude's, and um, some of the bigger organizations, Wounded Warrior, where hundreds of millions of dollars, or St. Jude's at $5 billion, where it's like, you look to those organizations as a mom and pop org like mine, and you get jealous, and you see their potential and capabilities of what they're able to bring to the table. But then over the years, and this took a long time for me to realize, like, being fat, $1 million charity is a lot. It's a very beneficial place to be at, because we can run indefinitely on our funding right now. We have set ourselves up for success for years to come. Whereas in St. Jude's is a $5 billion charity. They raised $16 million through Twitch last year. I don't know if that number is correct or not, but it comes down to the fact that that's a drop in the bucket for them. That doesn't even register on their radar for what they need to keep that engine running, and the amount of money they had to put down to raise that $16 million. It has to be pretty dramatic. So there is value to being the small guy out there. You're fast. You can make moves quickly, and we're in a really good spot. So it took me a long time to get out of that. We want to be number one. We want to go up against Wounded Warrior, and not saying we still don't. there's definitely some value in what we're doing versus what they are doing. Um, it's yeah, that's kind of where we're coming from there. Um, I was a lot more aggressive when I first started out. Again, when you have money in the bank, it's a lot easier to sit back and be less aggressive. If you talk to anybody that knows me from my earlier charity days, they would see me coming and they would run the other direction because they knew it was like inviting the preacher to your party and he was going to ask you when the last time you were at convention. And it's like, hey, when we started getting our feet under us and I did not have to come up and aggressively beat people around the face and neck about what they're doing to support the troops, it made life a lot easier. Like I was able to let my folks kind of sit back and I was able to take a step back and now people come to us about helping out and how they can support us. And it's, it started off in a good place. There was a little bit of sibling rivalry where you kind of shake your fists at the bigger organizations and, us versus them. And it kind of mobilized our red shirt fan base. We call ourselves the red shirts because we all wear red. And it kind of it made for an interesting kind of team mentality, but it also turned a lot of people off. And that was another big uh, turn change for me. Um, Going from learning to work with other charities as opposed to seeing them as enemies or people in the space that are trying to bring you down. Um, when you find out that there are 2 to 3 million Twitch streamers, and half of our money comes from Twitch streamers at the $5 and $10 level, half of our annual revenue comes from Twitch streamers, and we had 1,000 Twitch streamers raising money for us last year. When you hear there's 2 million to 3 million broadcasters at any given time on Twitch, there's plenty of room for everybody in the space. And especially because we're the only veteran organization out there doing anything. If you want to support veterans, then they will come find us. And it's so much easier. We've working with other charities like Child's Play, or as I said, One Up on Cancer organizations. They look out for us, and if there are opportunities for veterans out there, they are the first to get on the horn or get on an email and let us know. And it's so much easier to just. But of course, you have to get to that point. You have to get to, you know, altitude before, and for a long time it was, we were just kind of duct taping the wings onto the side of this aircraft. So that was a big lesson for me to learn over the years, is kind of you have to work with other people and not treat them as adversaries. It's a lot easier. Working with game devs and publishers, it's about marketing budgets and gear, like donated gear that they're not using as tax write-offs. One of the big reasons why my old business partner over at Operations Supply Drop and myself kind of battled with one another was he felt that there was not enough money in the games industry to support an organization like ours, and that we needed to kind of work with um, uh, kind of get out of the game space and focus on going after Fortune 500 companies that might not really understand gaming. And I never wanted it to be that way. Gaming was the thing that kind of helped me when I came back from my deployment. So I wanted to make sure that we were able to stay in our lane, so to speak. And nowadays, these kids that are growing up on iPads with Minecraft, we would talk with CEOs that wouldn't get it or wouldn't get where we were coming from. These 60 and 70-year-old people in charge that were just like, well, I don't get it, but let me tell you about my 10-year-old. That's all he does is play video games. And those kids on iPads with Minecraft are the next, people being, putting on uniforms, and they'll be the next, senators, congressmen, and people in positions of power. And our organization is finding that over time, uh, gaming is becoming just synonymous. It's everywhere, and you can't get away from it. $100 billion organization, and we just keep growing every year. Another big one, and we're getting short on time here. I need to start wrapping this up. But another big one, people love talking about how much they want to support the troops, but they don't actually do it. And that's charity in general, especially in these times right now, where it will be interesting. We have a fundraiser coming up in May, and a lot of people are at home. We've got more people signed up to stream for us than ever before for May. But will people be supportive when they don't know if their money's coming, or if they're unemployed, or they don't know where their next paycheck's coming from? It will be interesting to see where that goes. Everybody wants to help. Nobody wants to say, well, screw starving kids in Africa, or I'm not into helping kids with cancer. Everybody's going to say, yeah, I want to help. but getting them to actually pull the trigger and help out is a whole different conversation. It took years and years. When somebody said they wanted to help me, like when I would meet them at an event of some kind, it would be very much like, I want, we're gonna do this. And I would not let go of them until they they either ghosted me, which happened a lot, or I would be forced to just kind of give up the lead. And it took a long time for me to understand that those people would not have put on a good event. They wouldn't have supported the troops in the way we wanted them anyway. If you're forcing somebody kicking and screaming to do something versus them coming up on their own and wanting to do something, and them coming to you with emails and being proactive, it's always a way better relationship. And that took a long time for me to like just kind of, hey, just let go of it. If they're not interested, they'll let you know. And they are interested, they'll let you know. They'll want to get involved. And we're getting way short on time here. I didn't think I'm kind of chattering here. Uh, that about covers it. I've got other bullet points, but I'm kind of short on time, and I'd rather open it up for questions here. So let's go ahead and do so. I want to thank everybody for coming out, and certainly appreciate your time here today. And let's open it up for questions.